Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Before I introduce you to our guest, here's a quote I picked just for this episode. Learn from yesterday, live for today, hope for tomorrow. The important thing is not to stop questioning. Albert Einstein. My dear friend Ben Azadi is back. Episode 64, season 6 of the Culture Matters podcast. If you haven't listen to that episode, take a look at that after we're done here. Ben is an influencer, a podcaster, an author, Keto Flex, the new book, an expert around health, fitness, holistic way of looking at how to take seriously, I guess, your life in a sense, Keto Camp, and has a sick library behind him that you're not going to be able to see. But selfishly, I'm obsessed with that. Ben, I picked that Einstein quote because I was re-listening to episode 64, our last one, reminiscing over my World of Warcraft expert, I guess, what do you call that? Obsession in your own video game obsession. And I remember, that we used Einstein. So I picked that one again. What comes to mind when I read that quote, right? The important thing is not to stop questioning. And I'm asking that in the context of like how you've approached health, how you've approached your business. You seem like the type of person that doesn't stop questioning.
Yeah, it's a great quote and a great lead into the conversation. Well, first of all, thanks for having me back. I love what you're doing, Jay. Culture does matter. Absolutely 100% matters.
Thanks.
What you just shared, hits home for me. First of all, I love Einstein. I quote him very, very often, but questioning everything. I really believe the quality of your life is dependent on the quality of the questions you ask, not just yourself, but individuals around you, especially in health. It's like when we see nutrition advice out there from the mainstream perspective, like, are we questioning it or are we just believing in this? Essentially, it's propaganda. And if you are just letting them dictate what you should eat and how you should live, I believe it's going to lead you down a path of being miserable physically and mentally. So we should question that. And you should question me too. I have studied and I have applied and I have done some great things, but you should still question me. So for me, it's like the quality of the questions you ask will determine the quality of your life. And are you questioning individuals? Are you asking yourself questions? And once you ask those questions, you got to get an answer. There needs to be an answer to that. So it forces you to dig deeper and find what that truth is for yourself. And that truth could be very different than somebody else asking the same question. But the cool thing about that is that you get to take the information you're learning from the questions you're asking, you get the one direct path towards that answer and then a completely different path. And then you get to synthesize what actually works for you. And I love that, not just with health and nutrition, but with all areas of life.
When it comes to the health sector, do you find that when you start questioning people in positions of authority that they may not have the answers once you get to a certain depth?
I have found that when I start questioning people who's in authority from a mainstream perspective, it usually leads me down a hole of a money trail. For example, I believe that when you kill somebody quickly, they'll call it murder. But when you kill somebody very slowly, they call it conventional medicine. And when I say that, I say that because when we look at hospitals, for example, which should be a building that's healing, it should be a healing environment. But when you look at hospitals, it is not a healing environment. It is a sick care factory. And they give food to patients that lead to inflammation that led to them being there in the first place. Hospitals allow fast food restaurants like McDonald's and Burger King in them. So when I question that, it leads me down the money trail. They do. Yeah. And you go to a convenience store, Walgreens or CVS, it's a brilliant business model because you go to the convenience store and you see at the front of the store a whole bunch of processed Franken food that people buy, which creates symptoms and inflammation. And then they come back to the same convenience store, but now they go to the back of the store and get their prescription for the medication, and they just come back and forth. So, it leads me down the rabbit hole of it's a financial gain.
I mean, well, first of all, I want to know Keto Flex. What's that? What's the premise?
The premise behind Keto Flex is that we are designed to utilize ketosis as a metabolic process. Every human is. There's nothing new about keto. It's been around for as long as humans have existed. All of our ancestors used this metabolic process called ketosis. However, I don't believe, or I don't teach as well, that we should do keto forever. I believe in going in and out, similar to the way our ancestors did it. And that's what keto flex means. It essentially means metabolic flexibility. Let's burn fat and use ketones sometimes, and let's burn sugar and use carbohydrates sometimes. But it's the back and forth that the magic
Can you
happens.
please explain to hopefully my friends that are listening to this that when I go out to eat, they say, "Oh, I'm on keto," and then something that happens between their mouth and their hand and what's going in their mouth from their hand, like I just, because I was in the bodybuilding space one time, and like my understanding of keto was like it takes time to get into ketosis. And I hear this keto thing come up from like some of my sphere, and it's so clear that they're not on keto. But maybe it's I don't understand it. So like, you know what I'm like? I don't know if you've ever come across this where someone says, "Oh, I'm on keto," and like, but you're eating that. So can you explain how about this? Maybe what are some ways someone gets off ketosis not realizing they're off it?
They eat too many carbohydrates. That's the most common way. So if you see them eating carbs, they're getting out of ketosis.
But like, why? But do you see what I see, or am I just nuts? Like, there's some people I hang with, that they think they're on it, but they're not. So,
yeah.
Like, what is a carb? Maybe we can start with that. Are they not understanding what carbs are? Like,
I think they're not testing. They think they're lower, because here's the thing. The average American eats about 300 grams of carbs per day. That's too many, 300 plus. In order to get into ketosis, we need to drop that under 50 grams per day for most people. However, most people are not testing or even testing the right way if they are in ketosis. So they think I could have some carbs, but they might be having 75 grams or 100 grams of carbs, which is still low carb, but not low enough to be in ketosis. And not knowingly, they're probably taking themselves out of ketosis.
What's like an example of like a meal that could take you out and you don't even realize it?
If let's say they get a steak and then they get a sweet potato with that steak, that sweet potato probably knocked them out of ketosis.
It's that easy.
It can be. Yeah. Depending on, the health of their metabolism and how much of that sweet potato they ate. Yep.
How do you test?
There's 3 ways to measure ketones. There's breath meters, there's urine strips, and there are blood meters. Out of those 3, my favorite is blood. It's the most accurate. I use a company called Keto Mojo, and you prick your finger and then you get the blood, put that in the device, and it tells you if you're in ketosis. If it shows 0.5 or higher, you are in ketosis.
Will I be able to take a BA test someday, Ben Azadi?
That would be a good idea. Keto camp machine sort of thing.
I'm carting that around. I want to bring it to my my buddies that say, "Oh, I'm on ketosis."
I like that idea. Yes.
Where do you think this fascination with fasting, intermittent fasting, or this curiosity has come from in the last X amount of years? Or am I just misguided thinking that it's a newer understanding or interest?
No, you're right. It's new. It's popular now, but it's not new. It's just nuanced. Same, keto and fasting are both nuanced, not new. In 2013, Jay, when I started practicing intermittent fasting and keto, I remember posting on Facebook that I'm doing an 18-hour fast today. I'm doing a 24-hour fast today. I'm taking my clients and they're doing a 24-hour fast. And I would get so much hate. You are causing so much harm to your clients and to yourself. You are causing eating disorders, etc. Now I post the same thing and people are like, "Oh yeah, me too. I'm doing 18 hours." So it's just more adopted. It's more popular. Celebrities are talking about it, but there's nothing new about it. This is something that our ancestors have done forever.
What do you think what's that tell you about human psychology? I know you're a student of that.
It's that the celebrities have big pull. When they start doing something like keto or fasting, then their fan base start doing it, and now they don't care about what they used to think about it now, because the person that they look up to and put on a pedestal is doing it. They should do it too.
So I just need one big celebrity culture puzzle.
Probably. Yeah, you get a huge fan base. You get The Rock talking about culture matters. You get a whole millions of people following you.
What's been your biggest lesson of 2023?
Ooh, biggest lesson of 2023. I just read a really good book called 10X is Easier Than 2X.
Oh, interesting. Was that
And
Sullivan?
yeah, exactly. Dan
Yeah, I didn't read
Sullivan.
that yet.
Yeah. And Dr. Benjamin Hardy. Most people hear 10X and think it's a Grant Cardone thing, but it's actually nothing like Grant Cardone. I actually think they take some shots at Grant Cardone subtly in the book. It was actually one of the best business books that I listened to. And I think you would love it. I know you're a big reader.
I got to buy it right now.
Yeah, I want to know your thoughts when you listen to it or read it. But one of the biggest things I got from that book is that they have you look at your activities that you've been doing for the last 7 days or 30 days, depending on how long you want to track it. And then you would put them into two different categories. This is a 2X activity, meaning it'll cause you to grow, but it's just like you're just going to double your growth next year, which is good, but it's not like great. It doesn't really excite somebody, at least not me. And then there's 10X activities that you know that this should be like something you do and you will accelerate your progress, your reach, your finances, everything you want to accomplish. And when I looked at my activities, I had way too many 2X activities that I've been doing. And it was like a slap in the face, but a great awareness for me to be like, okay, I need to figure this out. If I want a 10X and I do, I need to find a situation where I could figure out who's going to do this for me now instead of me doing it. And I want to focus all of my energy, or most of it, I should say, on these 10X activities. And that's been the biggest lesson I've learned so far.
In 2023.
In 2023. Yep.
And you've done a podcast for some time. How many years have you been doing that?
Yeah. Let's see, this month, actually, 4 years ago, it launched 4 years ago this month. Yeah. I didn't even think about that. So you asked it. Yeah. We're 622 episodes in.
Holy cow.
4 years. It's been fun.
And where can the audience listen to that?
It's called the Keto Camp podcast, and camp is spelled with a K. It's available on all podcast platforms. We also released the video format on YouTube. And I just moved into this new location. I know your audience cannot see it, but you could see it, Jay.
Looks great.
Moved here 3 weeks ago, and I'm building out a podcast studio right here to do more in-person interviews as well.
Well, so that's a big commitment. Over 150 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. 156, 152, 55, and it's 75. Going back to the hospitals, what do you think is the reason that the system, at least is perceivably reactive in how our culture is medicating, prescribing, healing, quote unquote, people, and not proactive? Like why not? Or maybe I even have it wrong, that I'm assuming that it's reactive versus proactive. If you can unpack that, your thoughts on that. Is it, like, why is the McDonald's in the hospital?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to say I respect doctors. I respect conventional medicine. There's a time and place for emergency medicine. Thank God we have hospitals and we have that. So I'm not saying it's all bad. But to your point, and actually to your quote in the beginning with Einstein also said, intellectuals solve problems, geniuses prevent them. And I believe it's a money issue. It's a money thing. It's a financial gain. If you could keep people reliant on you for a very long time to get their medications and double up and get a third medication or a 20th medication, you're going to make a lot of money. You want to get them to that point. And that's the reactive version of it. But if you're proactive and telling people, okay, let's practice intermittent fasting. Let's have you do a 24-hour fast once a week. How are you going to make money from that? You can't put that into a pill. You're going to lose billions of dollars. So it's a money thing. That's the primary reason why I believe they allow that.
How can the average person that's listening to this today get a grapple over their health? Where's one start?
Yeah, it's a good question. Easiest thing you can do is pay close attention to what the government is telling you to eat. Follow those nutritional guidelines to a T and do the complete opposite. And you're going to be healthy. Just do the opposite.
What's wrong with that pyramid? Is it even a pyramid today, or is it upside down?
Well, it used to be the food pyramid. Now it's called my food plate. They're both awful. There's a school, Tufts University. There's a doctor who heads their nutrition program. His name is Dr. Mosafarian. He put out a food compass, which is something that he believes the government should implement with the FDA. And he's actually trying to work with President Biden to implement this food compass. On the food compass, they released it last year. Your audience could just Google Tufts University food compass, but you'll see they'll rank different foods and they'll put it into three different categories depending on where they think it lands in terms of your health and nutrition. So there's a category that's all green, which means it should be encouraged to eat daily. Your family should eat it. Yellow, eat in moderation. Red, minimize. On that list, you see Lucky Charms, you see frosted mini wheats, you see eggs cooked in canola oil, higher than butter and eggs, right? And this is what they want to implement as the next dietary guidelines. At least that's their goal. So it's the complete opposite of what we should do.
Is it something to do with like climate?
I don't know.
You don't know.
I mean,
Maybe that's just too conspiratorial, I guess.
well, when they tell you to minimize red meat, it usually has something to do with climate. But when you look at what causes the climate to have issues, if you want to call it global warming, or whatever it is, red meat is so low on the totem pole there. It's like, why should that be your main focus? And what's interesting to me is that the people that are talking about climate change fly on their private jets, and that actually contributes more to climate change than eating red meat.
So when we talk about that food table, as you call it, right?
The food compass.
The food compass. What do you think the reasoning behind Lucky Charms being on it?
Well, they're probably getting a financial gain. I'm sure of it. I'm sure they're getting paid by General Mills, Kellogg's, et cetera, to have that on that list there.
And are you refuting on this podcast that Lucky Charms is healthy?
I'm here to tell you Lucky Charms is not healthy. It never was. It never will be. Don't eat Lucky Charms.
So let's say we want to move. Okay. So the red you're saying comes before the green. The green comes before the yellow kind of thing, or the yellow comes before the green.
Yeah,
so
green means go,
red?
Yellow means in moderation, red means minimized.
But you're saying opposite, do the opposite.
Correct. Yeah. So when they put red meat and eggs in the red, that should be in the green. When they put Lucky Charms and frosted mini wheats in the green, that should be in the red. Exactly.
And now what is so good about red meat? Because I see this carnivore thing being postured from the Peterson family. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Yeah, of course.
So is there value behind that philosophy? Yeah. And then why? I think Rogan talks about that, but these would be all the QAnon people.
Now it's catching up to the mainstream, right?
Yeah, I just, it's like, which side am I on? I try to be in the middle the best I can, but
I like that.
Red meat, right? What's so good about red meat?
There's a lot of good things about red meat. Number one, there's very little anti-nutrients in red meat. So when you think about vegetables and plants, a big reason why Jordan Peterson and his daughter, Michaela, Joe Rogan, and all these individuals love like a carnivore diet or red meat is because plants have anti-nutrients in them. Plants do not want to be eaten. They have developed these defense mechanisms over time to survive. Humans could fight for themselves. Animals could do the same thing, but what could plants do? They can't run away. They don't have teeth. So they have to defend themselves. So they develop these plant toxins where a predator would eat them, and then the predator would get very sick. And remember, every time I ate that plant, I got sick. I'm not going to eat it. So when we eat these plant toxins in abundance, it creates inflammation in our gut, leading to autoimmune issues, leading to diabetes, and a lot of issues out there. So when you remove them, and I'm not saying you should remove them forever, but when you have more red meat, which is more bioavailable, it's a complete protein, it doesn't have these anti-nutrients, your body handles that much better. And that's why you're hearing all these stories like Michaela Peterson, all these stories about what carnivore or red meat does to heal all these autoimmune conditions.
Isn't that, or so the vegetarian, are you, I guess, against the vegetarian diet, or see more as it should be a balance?
I'm always of a balance. I don't think we should always do carnivore. However, the majority of Americans and probably the population have leaky gut. And if you have leaky gut, I don't think a vegetarian diet would be good for you. I think you should do more meat-based.
Sounds terrible. How do you know if you have that?
Yeah.
Well, you have that right now.
Yeah, most people do. You could test. You could do a stool test and it'll tell you. But the most, easiest way that's free is to pay attention to your symptoms. If you eat vegetables and you get post-nasal drip or joint pain or brain fog or a headache, chances are you have leaky gut. If you have symptoms, chances are you have leaky gut.
And what, uh, and that way you said if you eat greens,
Vegetables, correct. Yeah, plants.
and is it because there's too much plants?
That and also the anti-nutrients in them. They have there's a whole bunch of anti-nutrients, Jay. So there's like oxalates and lectins and phytates. When you eat these with leaky gut, they poke holes in your gut, makes leaky gut worse.
And are you coming across this on a regular basis with people that you talk to?
Oh yeah, it's becoming more and more popular and also evident that a lot of people are dealing with these issues. That's why I love carnivore. In my book, Keto Flex, I wrote an entire chapter. It's part of the 4 pillars that I teach my students. However, I don't think we should run away from these anti-nutrients. I think we should fix the gut and then bring them back in. And then it creates something called a hormetic stress, which is actually a beneficial stress.
And how do I go about fixing the gut?
It starts with getting yourself into ketosis, burning fat instead of sugar. And then we pair that with fasting. Fasting is one of the best ways to fix a gut because you eliminate your gut from having to overwhelm itself. When you're eating frequently, your digestive system can't keep up with the frequency of the meals that we eat. So fasting is great. And you pair that with carnivore, that's just a great trifecta for fixing the gut.
There was a period of time that I was only eating between like the afternoon and just the afternoon. And I felt good. And then I fell out of that. And now I haven't been able to get back to it. What's wrong with me? and like, who else, is that a thing? Because I did it. Like, it was like mimesis. You copy your environment. There was somebody that I was like just modeling subconsciously in their behaviors. And I was in this rhythm. And then I've fallen off and I have not been able to get back. Is that a phenomena that you see occur? And if yes, I'm curious to know what one does about it. If no, I'm curious who I should be seeing, mental health professional.
Well, no, you're right. You become your environment, right? And if you, whether consciously or subconsciously, so you saw maybe somebody in your environment doing that and you modeled that. And then maybe that person wasn't as involved in your life and then you didn't model that. Is that what
I
happened?
got a lot of value. I'm not sure why I stopped. They're so involved that I was in it for a long time. It felt like where I was in this pattern of eating at a certain time and that was it.
Well, you travel a lot too. And there's a lot of, I imagine there's a lot of social situations when you travel. That could probably be a part of it.
Falling out of it?
Falling out of it, correct. Yeah.
I don't know. It's almost like I just stopped and then I haven't gotten back. Have you found that people rebound in that way? Or is it a rarer thing? Or I guess I think that's a lifestyle because I'd like to go back.
Yeah.
I liked everything that was going on then. It was like less to think about. I don't want to think about eating.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't think about it. You're going to perform better as an entrepreneur as well, because your body's going to use your resources, not for digestion, but for like the task at hand.
It's a waste of time, frankly.
Yep. And money too. No need to eat.
I'll forget about it. Capital Grill. Who needs to do that? They did that write down where you could write the whole thing down for the pandemic. They got us. They got everybody. Right? It's all incentives. It starts getting you. Spend more money.
Yep. Yeah, no, you save money. Yeah. If you spend $15 on a meal every day, Monday through Friday, after a year, and let's say you skip that meal, you would save $3,900 in a year.
So what do you think? Because I can't be speaking for myself. There's got to be people listening to this that have said, that have acclimated to fast, intermittent. I'd like to even know the difference between the two, but they've acclimated to this culture. And then for whatever reason, they fell off and they couldn't get back. So what would be your advice to them and me?
I would say to look at fasting, if we're talking specifically about fasting, to look at it as a muscle. You develop it slowly over time. So if you're currently eating throughout the day, let's say breakfast, lunch, and dinner, let's say it's a 12-hour eating window, you eat at 7 a.m., 12 p.m., 7 p.m., then let's build that up to start with a 13-hour fast. So that would mean either your 7 p.m. dinner goes to 6 p.m. or your 7 a.m. breakfast goes to 8 a.m. You do that for a day. Okay, you feel good. Then you go to 14-hour fast where you just adjust that 2 hours now. And then you just build it up. And then you're going to gradually build up that muscle to the point where, let's say you're now doing 18 hours fasting and 6 hours eating, and you're back into your rhythm and your groove.
And so is that what you do in a small window in midday?
Yeah, most days I like a 6 hour eating window. So like, let's say 12 to 6 p.m. is a good window of eating.
And you're not sitting in front of the podcast mic there slowly eating a bag of Cheetos for 6 hours.
No, ideally you're having
COVID, you're on a plane, you kind of thing with the peanuts or something.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that. Ideally, it's like two big meals, 2 or 3 big meals, or protein and fat focused meals during that window.
And just like the lay person listening to this is thinking, well, what the heck is that going to do?
So much. Fasting, there's a lot of research behind it, but it's going to allow your digestive system to take a break, first of all. It's going to allow you to divert the energy that would have been used for digestion to now your brain and other areas that need healing. It's going to turn on a process called autophagy, which is where when your cells look for cells that are not functioning efficiently, and it fixes those cells and recycles those cells, or even gets rid of cells if they're called zombie cells that are not functioning at all. So all this is happening during a fast. But as an entrepreneur, which I imagine is probably your audience, you're going to notice more energy, focus, and clarity because your body's actually pumping you full of energy and resources because it thinks you're going through a famine and it wants you to be alert and energized to go hunt and kill, but you're just going to use it for a podcast or whatever it is.
Is there a diminishing return at some point where you have to reset it?
Yeah, too much fasting is not good. So an 18-6 is a good day-to-day schedule, but if you're doing like 24-hour fasting every day and just doing one meal a day, there is a law of diminishing returns. It's a good question because it's just too much fasting. You want to have a proper balance.
How would one know if they've gone too far?
Your results start to slow down. That's one way to pay attention to it. You could look at blood glucose and ketones. That could give you a good idea. I use an Aura ring.
Oh.
And this is looking at heart rate variability. So I'm a big fan of looking at heart rate variability, which is essentially looking at how adaptable and healthy your nervous system is. And I've seen if you fast too much, it's too much stress, and you'll see the heart rate variability drop. And that's not a good thing. You want to see it increase, not decrease. That could be a good gauge for people as well.
Have you seen that people are more successful in their work when they go into this? They adopt this full lifestyle. Yes.
Yeah. When I speak on stage, I am fasted most of the time because I want to perform at an elite level. I want to perform on my A game. And I know I will do that when I'm in a fasted state versus a fed state.
What's the difference psychologically?
The difference is what's happening when you eat food. You are designating a lot of resources to digest that meal. It takes a lot of resources and blood flow and bandwidth. And you're not going to use that for the brain. So it's being redirected to the gut. So you're just not going to feel as great. If, for example, you ate a big meal for Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever it was, your first thought was not, I'm so focused and energized, I'm going to go get some work done. No, your first thought was, where's the couch? I'm going to sit down and become a couch potato because it's that slump, that food coma. That's the word I'm looking for, that it puts you in when you eat too much.
Yeah, I know that there's a lot of truth to that. I'm curious what would you call them? Antagonists or, those with the placard signs outside of your speech in disagreement, have you come across a revolt or a negative sounding board? And if so, what's their argument?
In regards to fasting specifically, or?
Yeah, the value of fasting, the ketosis movement, if we were to go so far.
Yeah, I get that all the time. Social media, right? The keyboard gangsters will come out. I haven't actually had people like picket with signs outside my lectures yet. I mean, I hope to get to that point actually. But
Keto commies.
Yeah, exactly. I think for fasting, they're going to say it's too stressful and it's going to wreck your body, wreck your hormones. And it is true that fasting is a stress to the body. However, exercise is a stress to the body, but you don't hear them saying don't exercise. Really the amount of exercise, the recovery, same thing with fasting. It's how much you do. There's a sweet spot for it, but exercise is so important for your health. So is fasting, as long as you do it the right way. So that's one argument right there. And they're going to say women should not fast. And that's also wrong. Women should fast, but they should just do it differently than men. And I talk about that in the book as well. And then with keto, they're going to say, we're not designed to do keto forever. And I agree with them. That's a surprise to them because they think I'm all about keto forever, but I'm not. So it's not about doing keto forever. It's not about being dogmatic. It's about being metabolically flexible.
Where does this, I guess, where does your view of it's not an either or, I don't want to put words in your mouth, the dogma, like, how do you learn to be so open-minded or to see both sides?
Because I used to be very dogmatic when I started doing keto and fasting. Even when I was a vegan, I used to be a vegan in 2012. And it didn't serve me well. My health declined as a result, and it didn't serve my community. So I learned lessons from that. And now I do my best to not be dogmatic and to be open. And like you said earlier, like somebody saying you should always do carnivore, somebody saying you should always do vegan. It's probably somewhere in the middle, but maybe we start you on this way and then we get you towards the middle, right? So it's somewhere in the middle usually.
What advice would you give the audience, or not advice, like what do they need to hear to realize that they might be a bit dogmatic? Like, right? How do they know, right? The paradox. It's like,
Yeah.
these
Well,
podcasters just call me out. They're
if
the
you're
haters.
if your social media name is like Carnivore Kathy, you might be a little dogmatic. Just pay attention to the conversations that you're having with people. If you think your tool it needs to be used the same way for everybody, you're probably dogmatic. Keto is great, but it is not used the same way for everybody. I understand that. It needs to be customized. So if you're using the same tool over and over and over, even though there's so many different circumstances and unique health histories, you're probably dogmatic.
How much time, effort, energy would you say you put into becoming an expert in this?
2008 is when I started, and that was 15 years ago. And I probably studied on average 3 hours a day since then. So I don't know what that is in terms of the accumulation, but 3 hours a day on average for
3
15
hours
years.
a day. Holy cow. 1,000.
And I would say, that's not just health and nutrition. I'm a big fan of studying a lot of the things you study, self-development. It's a combination of both.
Yeah, I think it's about 16,225 hours or something.
Is
Like,
it?
I might be off a little bit.
Okay.
I got the other one
It's
wrong
definitely
earlier.
over 10,000. Yeah.
Yeah, I got the 155.5 was the podcast. I was like, I got that wrong. Dude, that's a lot of hours. Have you ever read Robert Greene's Mastery?
I have. It has been many years though.
He talked about the 10,000 hour rule. Do you think that applies? Like, is there a value there? Having been someone that's put so much time into this, do you feel like you're a master?
I do think that is a part of it. I wouldn't say I'm a master because I'm still learning and unlearning and relearning, etc. But I do think 10,000 hours is a good gauge to know if somebody should qualify to teach you what they're teaching.
Of the experts that you've come across and worked alongside, what's your take on mentorship and coaching and advisory? And I believe you're a mentor yourself.
Yeah.
So what's your take on the importance of that when it comes to learning something new or even mastering one's craft?
So important. I believe we should all have mentors. We could get mentorship from books, but it's a different level when it's actually somebody coaching you, guiding you, taking you out of your comfort zone. Because here's what have come to find. There's been a lot of times in my life where I didn't believe I could do something, but I had a coach and a mentor who believed I could. And I leaned on their belief until I adopted that belief for myself. And it landed me in that zip code of greatness, and it helped me achieve that. And I don't think I would have gotten there if I was on my own. And I also believe that my coach should have a coach, right? I think a mentor should have a mentor. So it's so critical. The accountability part is probably the biggest part too, because I know that if I'm going to have a call with this individual in 2 weeks, and these were the action items that I said I was going to get done, I want them to respect me. I want to be a man of my word. So I'm going to make sure I get it done or get most of it done by that call. So the accountability is huge for me too.
For those that are listening, they want to go beyond the book. Do you consult now for people that want to, take their knowledge of this and accountability to the next level? Is that something you offer? Let me pitch you on the show.
Outside of health, you mean?
Well, both, I guess,
Yeah. I totally do. I do consultations. I've had people reach out to me, asking me they're health coaches and they want to build their social media, and they've hired me for that. I've had entrepreneurs, hire me for that. So I love that stuff. I love teaching and learning about mindset probably more than I love teaching and learning about health and nutrition. I really do. I love that stuff.
What's next for you?
What's next for me is speaking more on stages and bigger stages. One of my favorite thing to do is to speak on stage. So I want to do that in bigger avenues, bigger places, reach more people. That's what's next for me.
You working on a new book?
I have written the second edition. I'm writing the second edition of the Keto Flex, and that'll be the next one. I haven't decided if it'll be the second edition or a new book, but that's the main thing. Something that I have been thinking about also writing in the future is a book on gratitude and what gratitude does to heal your body and all the science behind what I call vitamin G gratitude. So that might be in my near future as well.
Why?
Gratitude is just incredible. There's so much research out there on gratitude. Once you take it, vitamin G, you practice gratitude and feel it, it puts you in this anti-inflammatory state. I feel it right away, but there's also science that shows, Dr. Joe Dispenza has shown 2,000 chemical reactions take place instantaneously when you practice gratitude. And it's free, it's simple to do. And I think a lot of people poo-poo it or don't understand the value. And I want to put a structure in place and help people become aware of the healing benefits of gratitude.
Do you think the mindset piece, the philosophy runs corollary, or there's a side by side, the keto movement, the fasting philosophy, lifestyle?
For me, it does.
It's really about how people think.
Yeah.
They're like,
for me, it does, but in general, no, it does not. A lot of people teaching keto and fasting miss the point when it comes to that. I think 95% of our results is the mindset, 5% is the strategy. So yeah, for me, it's a huge part of it.
Why do you think that's missed?
I don't know. I think it could be a combination of things. It could be that the practitioner themselves don't do the work and study the mindset component, or maybe they do, but they undervalue how important it is. Also, a lot of people who come to keto are not looking for the mindset part. Even for me, I'll attract people to learn about keto and for diabetes and fasting and weight loss, but they'll get into my world and I'll let them understand, here are the fundamentals: mindset, sleep, movement. We got to master this. And then the keto, the fasting, the supplements, all that could work even better. So I get them in with keto or fat loss or whatever the buzzword is, but I change their paradigm and reframe them to, let's work on the inner work, the inner sizing, and then we could master everything else.
Do you think that there's a distinction between those that seek for the aesthetic versus the holistic?
Yes.
Aesthetic as in how they look, and it's a means to an end versus an end in itself, like the holistic health. I mean, can you unpack that a little bit from onto it?
It's a great question. And I do believe that. So if somebody is looking for more of the aesthetic part, they're going to be just looking for weight loss. They're going to be stepping on the scale every day. And if they don't see the number go down, they're going to be discouraged and we're probably going to give up or complain. Somebody who's looking for a holistic approach, they're focusing not on the weight, because weight loss is a side effect of getting healthy. They're focused on health, and they're focused on what I call non-scale victories, their energy levels, how their clothes fit, pictures, etc. And they're in it for the long term. So weight loss people focus on diets, and there's an endpoint to that, and they rebound. But lifestyle and holistic changes are more long-term views.
You think one's reactive, one's proactive?
I don't know if it's so much that, because they're both kind of being, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe that's like confusing, right? Reactive within a proactive.
Exactly, because they're kind of being proactive,
but I'm reacting within the proactive.
Yeah, I just think they're focusing on the wrong thing. I think they're focusing on weight gain and weight loss, and that's a symptom. Being overweight is a weight symptom, not a weight problem. So we talk about what the actual problem is, then we focus our energy on that, and then the weight loss takes care of itself.
Is it a time thing? Like in the long term, it's a short term versus long term?
Yeah, it's immediate gratification versus long-term view. Yep.
Very interesting. What, in closing, by the way, I was wrong. It was 16,425.
Oh, nice.
This recording, I'm like insecure about that. Oh, Jay's wrong again. And I hope if I'm wrong now, it is what it is at this point. But Ben, in closing, what do you think the meat of the conversation? What's the takeaway that you want the audience to have, other than my insecurity around trying to do math? Like, help me out, man. This has been a very informative episode.
The meat of it is that your body was built to be self-healing. Just figure out where the interference is. What have you done to interfere with the innate intelligence in your body? Remove the interference and your body will heal. your body will heal. But you got to believe it. Your belief will create that fact. And if you believe you cannot heal, then you're right as well. So I would say belief is very important.